the aristocracy loved this opera, which is slightly paradoxical because Rousseau was supposed to be a revolutionary, but apparently he went around humming the melody of this tune in what was described as the most out-of-tune voice in the kingdom.
The aria J'ai perdu mon serviteur from Rousseau's Le Devin du Village, beautifully sung there by soprano Janine Michaud, with Louis de Froment conducting his own chamber orchestra. Now, Rousseau, though a Frenchman and obviously writing in French, he was no supporter of French musical style, was he?
You know, this is what's so odd about this opera, because one of Rousseau's big theories, and he had quite a number of theories, including that Greek tragedies make the best operas, incidentally. One of his theories was that the French language is totally unsuitable for music, let alone opera. And the polemics between himself and Rameau have now become quite famous. They also raise some philosophical issues that are still quite interesting. But this opera is in French, and also it's not so much influenced by the Italian school as by Handel's version of the Italian school. So what Rousseau is obviously thinking of as Italian music isn't really purely Italian. It's something that's actually quite international, cosmopolitan at the time, which conflicts with his own idea. The important thing about the piece, though, is that it established the idea of opera in Paris as something that could be about little people as opposed to grand people. The shepherdess, we've just heard, is wiping her eyes on her apron, and she's concerned with very small problems about money and that kind of thing, but her emotions are looming much larger than power, if you like. And one of Rousseau's comments was that we don't want this Lully style of opera, which is just a representation of monarchical power. We want opera about little people. The paradox of that, of course, is that the monarchs got interested in these operas about little people because they wanted to be up to date.
What about the stylishness of this particular performance, though? I mean, it's I think the work's only recording. Did you feel that? How did you feel the performance?
I think the performance is excellent. Yes, yeah. It's understated. It doesn't try to be over theatrical. And I think it tries to get into this mood of a sort of anti-grand opera, a very sensitive, pastoral, very clear performance, and very, very stylish.
Very clearly recorded too, although it's in mono sound, as you may have heard. So that's Rousseau's Le Devin du Village, and it's from CPO with the number 9995592, and all these CPO reissues we're talking about this morning are at mid-price. Well, on now to the first of our proper Singspiele. It's a piece that's probably familiar only for its overture, Weber's Abu Hassan, an exotic little comedy. It's libretto based on a story from the Arabian 1001 Nights. And it was written in 1811 by a 24-year-old Weber, so I suppose we're talking about Weber's early maturity here, although the big operatic successes were still to come. Freischütz was some 5 or 6 years away. But even here, John, Weber and the stage seem made for each other, don't they?
Yes, I think this is one of the most beautiful operas that Weber wrote. It's undeservedly unknown, and I hope anybody listening to this programme who is in any way concerned with opera performance should buy this record and perform it, because it's a little masterpiece, quite frankly.
What's special about it?
Well, I think the sheer invention of the score is wonderful, for a start. And although it's highly influenced by Mozart, the abduction from the Seraglio in particular, there's lots of Turkish, Oriental-sounding music. There's a tone to it, a musical tone to it, which I think is quite original. Again, it's really about little people who are in debt this time. In fact, the opera had another title in the 19th century called The Burlesque of the Creditors. And Weber started composing it by writing a chorus all about money, 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 Geld, Geld, Geld. The extract I want to play, though, is the opening duet between the hero, the little hero, Abu Hassan, and his little wife, as he calls her, Fatime. They are wanting to dine on wine, and he says, little wife, give me the wine, but really they can only afford to eat bread and water. Now, you'll hear in this music the way Weber is parodying all kinds of operatic styles, French, Italian, German, and even his own style. It's quite wonderful.
Kann sich da der Geist erheben, lohnt es sich der Welt zu leben. Stille Zeugen meiner Not, stille Zeugen meiner Not. Brot und Wasser, Wasser, Brot, Brot und Wasser, stille Zeugen, Brot und Wasser, Wasser, Brot. Brot und Wasser, Wasser, Brot, Wasser, Brot. Ich will dir ein Liedchen singen, mit Aurore Distelstrahl. Zur Verzweiflung willst mich bringen. Nein, es steht des Hungers Qual. Liebes Weibchen, liebes Weibchen, liebes Weibchen. Liebes Weibchen, reiche Wein, liebes Weibchen, reiche Wein. Federweißen, losroten, Mahomet, Mahomet hat es verboten. Kann sich da der Geist erheben, lohnt sich der Welt zu leben. Stille Zeugen meiner Not, stille Zeugen meiner Not. Und Wasser, Wasser, Brot und Wasser, Wasser, Brot und Wasser, 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 Brot, Wasser, Wasser, Brot.
The opening duet from Weber's Abu Hassan, Hassan and his wife, Nikolai Gedda and Eda Moser, lamenting that instead of wine, preserves and pastries, they only have bread and water. Wolfgang Sawallisch conducting the Bavarian State Opera Orchestra there. The translations of the plots, which I'm afraid are all that we have in these 5 CDs, leave something to be desired. I mean, in the booklet, we have there Abu Hassan and his wife have wasted all their sequins in dissipation, which won't really do, will it? And there's quite a lot of dialogue in all these Singspiele, which means the lack of a libretto and a translation is doubly irritating unless you're fluent in German. But Having made those points, I think these are exceptional. This one particularly exceptional performance, isn't it?
This is an exceptional performance. I do agree about the lack of a libretto. It's not simply that one can't follow the dialogue. It's that the plots are often rather complex, and from the way they've been presented in these booklets, you can't really tell all the time what's going on, because most of these pieces are about disguise, and who is whom at one particular moment is really quite difficult to tell. In this case, the two protagonists decide that they're going to earn money by dying, and they die in turn. They pretend to die in turn to get the funeral costs from the ruler of the country. And it gets to a point in the opera, as we'll hear at the end of our talk, as we're going to play some more of it, where the Caliph, the head of the country, has to take a bet with his wife of which of the two has actually died, and it's actually very hard to tell from the booklet, precisely what's going on there. But never mind, we should be grateful, I think, for the recording.
Indeed.
Because it's extremely well conducted by Wolfgang Sawallisch, very well played, isn't it?
And Kurt Moll sings a sort of bumbling moneylender as well. Well, we'll be coming back to him for, as you say, 15-minute selection, just before 11:45. If you're not around, then let me give you the number now. It's CPO 999 5512. We move on now to another recording from Sawallisch and his Bavarian opera forces, and many of the same singers, Nikolai Gedda, Kurt Moll, here joined by soprano Helen Donat and baritone Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, who takes the two title roles, luxury casting then for Schubert's Die Zwillingsbrüder, the twin brothers, written 8 years after the Weber, but heard after the Weber. John, I gather you're not quite as enthusiastic about this.
No, I'm not quite so enthusiastic about this. This is the only opera of Schubert's that was performed in his lifetime. And if one discounts Die Zauberhafen, which is not an opera, that was also performed. It's actually proof, I think, that he really wasn't a terribly good opera composer. Now, that could be that he hadn't got the right libretti, but I think one of the problems is that his music is too melancholic and doesn't have that rather abrasive quality ever that you need to be a good opera composer. The music doesn't sympathise with chambermaids, and Richard Strauss always used to say that Wagner's success was because he always thought of the chambermaids when he wrote The Ring of the Nibelungs, sitting up there in the gallery. Schubert is so high-minded in these operas, and Die Zwillingsbrüder, I think, is meant to be relatively funny, but you don't really understand this from the music. It's very heavy-handed, I think.
But there are lots of wonderful sort of echt Schubertian tunes. I mean, Schubert on top form, surely, and here we have Fischer-Dieskau singing some of them.
Yes, well, he plays two characters. I mean, the idea of the piece really is that the twin brothers are understood by the people on stage to be the same person. In fact, they're two different people, but they have totally different characters. One, Franz, is a very gruff, unattractive person. The other one is Friedrich, who is a miraculously gentle, good-hearted person. Both of them have returned from the war. No one's seen them for 18 years. And Dieskau has to play these two characters. There's also a moment in the opera towards the end where they are supposed to fall into one another's arms. Now, I don't know how they did that originally, because the original creator of the roles was Johann Michael Vogel, who was an interpreter of Schubert's. In fact, that's why it got performed. So how he fell into his own arms, I don't know. But this aria Friedrich is a very moving paean to nature and to the goodness of life, sung here with great artistry by Fischer-Dieskau.
des Lebens Glück. Fühlt mal ganz des Lebens Glück. Hüten, Hügel, Sträucher, Bäume, alte Freunde, steht ihr Himmelswonne, süße Träume, meine Jugend zeigt ihr mir.
The gentle one of the two twin brothers returning from the French Foreign Legion to greet his home village in Schubert's Die Zwillingsbrüder, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, with the Bavarian Opera Orchestra conducted by Wolfgang Sawallisch. I wonder if we haven't been a little harsh on this. I mean, lots of leanings to Mozart on the one hand and Rossini on the other. And even Beethoven, there's one aria for the coarse twin fronts, which sounds a little like Pizarro in Fidelio. All these, for me at any rate, made a pretty enchanting cocktail. So that's Schubert's Die Zwillingsbrüder. It's like all the other Singspiele we're looking at this morning on a single CD at mid-price from CPO, this one with the number CPO 9995562. And we move on now to a comic opera by the 12-year-old Mendelssohn, Die beiden Pädagogen, the two pedagogues, another original EMI recording from the 70s with Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau among the cast and the Bavarian Opera Chorus and Orchestra, this time conducted by Hans Wallberg. Extraordinary to think it was written in 1821 and wasn't first performed until 1962. The booklet notes another cherishable moment of dubious translation. Mozartian vibrations swing all through this youthful work. John, how much... Is this real Mendelssohn, in fact?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, if Schubert felt he had to compose operas to be successful but wasn't really sympathetic, I think we got the case of someone here who felt he didn't have to write operas but was actually would have been rather good at doing it, because this little piece is very theatrically done. It's very clever, it's very sophisticated, and I imagine, I've never seen it on stage, it would be quite effective. I think the reason Mendelssohn didn't write operas later, it was for his circle somehow not quite the done thing. As opera at that time still had a slightly dubious reputation. I mean, you wrote string quartets and symphonies, but opera, this was a slightly tasteless thing. So this little opera that he wrote at 12, which is meant to be a family affair, really, because it's all about fathers and sons and the education of sons, as its title suggests. It's a private performance. I mean, it was performed privately in his house, which was okay for that circle, I think.
But it takes on argument about effective teaching methods in a very sophisticated manner, a very advanced subject for a 12-year-old.
Yes, this is a debate about education, but I think it's also done in a rather high bourgeois way, in the sense that one doesn't really take all of that too seriously, because the main pedagogue in the piece is the village schoolmaster, who has the wonderful name of Kinderschreck, which is actually not been badly translated as bogey. No relation to the film star, of course.
There's a wonderful, well, I'm not quite sure what you call it, dispute quartet about the merits of the two competing...
Basilov and Pestalozzi, yes. These two so-called conflicting theories of education. Basilov was for the practical education, and Pestalozzi was for the development of the whole child. They were both influenced very much by Rousseau, incidentally, and the quartet puts the argument quite well.
Wie steht da, wie steht da, wie steht da? Lehrer 20 Jahre gewesen, nicht den großen Mann gelesen. Nicht den großen Mann gelesen, das unsterbliche Genie, das unsterbliche Genie, das unsterbliche, unsterbliche, unsterbliche Genie, das unsterbliche Genie, das unsterbliche Genie, das unsterbliche Genie, das unsterbliche Genie. Wie steht da, wie steht da, wie steht da? Lehrer 20 Jahre gewesen, Freilich, Basel doch, ja, freilich, Basel doch, freilich, Basel doch, freilich, Basel doch. Wie es weitergeht, ein Gelehrter, wie es weitergeht, Bleiben wir bei Pestalozzi stehen, bleiben wir bei Pestalozzi stehen, bleiben wir bei Pestalozzi, Pestalozzi, Pestalozzi stehen. Pestalozzi, was geht ihr mich an? Pestalozzi, was geht ihr mich an? Was doch, was doch, was doch, was geht ihr mich an? Pestalozzi, was geht ihr mich an? Pestalozzi, Pestalozzi, was doch, was doch, was doch. Jetzt sind sie ernst, jetzt sind sie ernst, das ist für was ein toller Streit, das ist für was, das ist für was ein toller Streit, das ist für was ein toller Streit, ein toller Streit. Pestalozzi, 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 was doch, was doch, was doch, was doch, was doch. Pestalozzi, 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 Pestalozzi. Wie steht ihr da, wie steht ihr da, wie steht ihr da? Lehrer 20 Jahre gewesen, nicht den großen Mann gelesen. Aber wissen Sie denn nicht, was der große Weise spricht? Blitzerzinformator, müssten Sie das weiße Spruch doch wissen. Aber wissen Sie denn nicht, was der große Weise? Blitzerzinformator, müssten Sie das weiße Spruch doch wissen. Pestalozzi, Pestalozzi, Pestalozzi. Hase doch! Nein, Herr, Sie sind kein Kinder, seid bei mir. Jetzt hat mich ein Schweigen an. Und Sie mir so steht zu sein, das soll Sie gut sein. Jetzt scheinen nur Sie sich entweder das Mädchen, das Fleckchen dick, das wollen Sie kennen, das Mädchen dick, ich will Sie kennen, wer oder dick, ich will Sie meinen, was will Sie kennen, das will ich nicht
Adolf Della Pozza, Klaus Hirte, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau and Günther Wewel hotly debating the methods of the two pedagogues. Mendelssohn's Die beiden Pädagogen is from CPO with the number 9995502. Well, on now to another one-act an opera about an opera rehearsal, Die Opernprobe by Albert Lotzing. Now, this is the most recent of the Singspiele we're looking at this morning, first staged in 1851 in much the same, well, I suppose it is in much the same tradition, isn't it, John?
Oh, it is much in the same tradition. It's about little people again and about rather manic aristocrats. It's about a count, takes place in the castle of a count. The count is mad on opera. It's so much so that he always addresses his servants in recitative, and he also makes it a compulsory rule of employment that all his servants participate in opera. They have to perform opera. So the opera opens in actually quite a progressive manner, I suppose, today's, with the chambermaid Hanschen conducting an orchestral rehearsal.
Und ich war
soprano Regina Mar-Heinecke as the chambermaid, taking the orchestra in rehearsal. Bravissimo, she eventually shouts. Well, the orchestra, in fact, there was the Bavarian Opera Orchestra once more, this time conducted with the chorus, I should say, this time conducted by Ottmar Suitner. And again, this is classically cast Nikolai Gedda singing a cavatina halfway through. Not sure if it's a real thing or a parody, but it's very beautifully sung. And Walter Berry is among the cast too, and he's a master of this sort of thing. John, Lortzing's music, I mean, much admired in Germany, but not really anywhere else. Solid virtues rather than Williams.
No, well, this piece, I think, is one of his very best pieces, actually. He didn't live to experience its success because he died shortly after the first performance in 1851. But the reason it's a success is that Lortzing, apart from writing his own libretti, which meant that he always did something suitable for his musical intentions, had a very good sense, as many of the composers of these pieces do, of a style, operatic style, which means that the piece is a wonderful study of operatic parody, and I think it comes off here. The so-called little chambermaid at the beginning is making a wonderful job of conducting that orchestra and keeping them in trim, and that means, of course, that at this period, just after the revolution in Europe, that it was also making a kind of social comment as well, and questioning this whole hierarchy, of the aristocratic view of opera. So it's a very interesting little piece in many respects, and performed very well here.
It is, very well indeed. Lortzing's Die Opernprobe is, again, from CPO with the number 9995572. Well, if you've found that you've suddenly developed a taste for Singspieler, it's worth mentioning the 5 we've been looking at this morning are part of a series of 10 in all that CPO have just reissued in one fell swoop, the edition all on separate discs, including more one-act offerings from Schubert, Mendelssohn and Gluck. John, if you had to pick just one of your 5, which, well, I know it would be the Weber Abu Hussan.
Oh, quite definitely.
And we're going to finish with an extract, a lengthy selection of that. So can you briefly take us through what's happening?
Well, as we already remarked, it's actually rather hard because the little booklets don't say much about the plot, but I'll do my best to say what the beginning of the extract's about and leave the rest to you, Jonathan, at the end of it, if you don't mind. Well, this extract starts about 2/3 of the way through the opera where Fatime is having rather a few problems with Osmin, a character sung by Kurt Moll called Omar here. He wants to give her money, pay off her debts, but he wants to sleep with her at the same time. That creates difficulties. Then someone comes in from the Caliph, and because they've made this bet with the Caliph that they've got to be dead, she has to suddenly say to her husband, Abu, you've got to pretend to be dead and I will sing a lament for you. And then there's a wonderful parody of a lament. And you please take it on later.
Siehst du diese große Menge, teils von Wechseln, teils von Steinen, du vermissest auch nicht einen, alle sind nun mein, alle sind nun mein. Wer kreist uns den Gedränge, wird sich unser Schicksal wenden. Siehst du diese große Menge, teils von Wechsel, teils von Scheiden, alle sind nun mein, alle sind nun mein. Fasse Mut, ich will mich fassen. Liebst du mich? Ich kann nicht hassen. Rede frei, oft trübt der Schein. Unverblümt. Nein, ja, nein, ja, nein, nein. Särgen ist gefallen und geglückt mein Schlaf, und geglückt mein Schlaf. Ach, mein Sehnen, mein Verlangen, zeigt es Tick-Tack deutlich an. Ach, mein Sehnen, mein Verlangen, ach, mein Sehnen, mein Verlangen, zeigt es Tick-Tack deutlich an. Zeigt es Tick-Tack, Tick-Tack, Tick-Tack deutlich an. mein Schätzchen. Ich liebe, dein Mann.
Oh, räume mir hier nur ein Plätzchen, ein winziges Plätzchen nur ein. Ein winziges Plätzchen nur ein.
So ängstlich.
Befolgt meinen Rat. Ein Küsschen zur Stärkung genommen, das Mittel ist wahrlich probat.
Und meinte, dann würde ich genesen.
Von Geld und von Gütern entblößt, kannst du dir die Wechselchen lösen?
Die Wechsel?
Sie sind schon gelöst. Das Närrchen ist gefangen. Und geglüht mein schlauer Plan, gelungen ist mein schlauer Plan. Ach, die Rosen deiner Wahl zünden aller Herzen an, zünden aller Herzen, ziehen alle Herzen an. Mein Täubchen.
Psst, ich höre Schritte.
Dein Mann?
Mein Mann, wir sind verloren.
Hilfe, Allah, rette mich.
Zur Flucht ist es zu spät. Schnell ins Kabinett. Mein Freund, deine Liebesglut soll gelöscht werden. Bist du schon da, mein Gemahl?
Ah ja, Liebste.
Der Vogel ist gefangen.
Welcher Vogel?
Der Gimpel Omar.
Na, warte, alter Schuft.
Hier, schau, diesen Beutel voll Geld habe ich vom Kalifen bekommen.
Wie herrlich.
Ich werde das Geld ins Kabinett bringen.
Oh, ins Kabinett.
Wo ist der Schlüssel?
Der Schlüssel. Der Schlüssel.
Ich suche in allen Ecken. Wo ist denn das vertraute Ding? Ich sah ihn noch im Schlosse stecken. Ich zu dem Kalifen gehe.
Suchen allen Ecken.
Ich sah ihn noch im Schlosse stecken.
Wo ist denn das vertraute
Ich
Ding?
zu dem Kalifen gehe. Ich zu dem Kalifen gehe. Und wär ich doch so kalten Blutes, so schließt sich doch ein Mark wohl ein. Glaub mir, ich bin getrosten Mutes, denn mein Gewissen fühlt sich rein. Ich weiß nicht, wo anzufassen, warum ich nicht will.
letztes Stündlein geschlagen.
Oh weh, schau, dort hinten kommt Semrut, die Vertraute von Zobeide. Schnell, leg dich auf den Divan.
Bedeck mich mit dem Brokat.
Oh, schnell, schnell.
Fatime, fasse dich. Sonderbar. Der Kalif behauptet, du seist gestorben und nicht Abu Hassan.
Ich läge statt seiner hier.
Ich werde meiner Gebieterin berichten, dass Abu Hassan tot ist. Dann hat sie ihre Wette gewonnen.
Welche Wette?
Der Kalif hat mit seiner Frau gewettet, wer von euch beiden nun eigentlich gestorben sei.
Mein armer Mann ist es.
Ach, arme Fatime. Doch jetzt muss ich schnell zu meiner Herrin.
Ist endlich fort.
Hoffentlich wird das alles kein böses Ende nehmen. Ängstlich klopft es will.
Zwar klopft's mir ein wenig im Herzen, doch wird es so übel nicht enden, von sich die Gefahren zu wenden. Erkenne die Klugheit allein, ermahn die Klugheit, ermahn die Klugheit allein. Lustig Weilchen,
Du kannst scherzen.
allerdings.
In dieser Lage, wie wird's gehen?
Dumme Frage, das erfährt man hinterdrein.
Aber ist mir so beklommen.
So war mir, ehe ich entschlief.
Ist es nicht
Oh weh, sie kommen,
so beide?
der Kalif. Oh weh, sie kommen,
zum Schrecken lebt ich wieder. Wie entritt ich dieser Mut?
Hurtig, leg dich nieder.
Schon so lange bin ich tot.
Du erwachst im Morgenrot, bald zu neuem Leben wieder.
Hätte ich früher das gedacht.
Du Stille, gute Nacht,
Gute Nacht.
gute Nacht.
Part of Weber's one-act Singspiel Abu Hassan, heard there in a recording made in Munich in the mid-1970s. Nikolai Gedda was Abu Hassan, Ada Moser, his wife Fatima, and the money changer Kurt Moll. And Wolfgang Zawalisch conducted the chorus and orchestra of the Bavarian State Opera. And that recording, perhaps I should say that piece, was John Dethridge's particular favourite of the 5 Singspiele we were reviewing. They're all on the CPO label at mid-price. This one with the number 9995512. And just a reminder that there are no texts or translations with any of them, just a background and a synopsis. Well, that's it from Record Review for this morning. For the last 3/4 of an hour of next Saturday's programme, Robert Kahn will be with me, and with recent reissues from conductors such as Hans Knappertsbusch, Willem Mengelberg and Leopold Stokowski. Earlier on next Saturday in Building Library from 9 o'clock, Colin Lawson compares available recordings of the Brahms Clarinet Quintet. And then we've a review of new releases of Baroque, opera and choral music from Jonathan Keats. So if the mood takes you, do join us at some stage next Saturday. In the meantime, my thanks to Record Review's producers Clive Portbury and Susan Kenyon. And as ever to you for listening. From me, Jonathan Swain, do enjoy the rest of your weekend and goodbye.